Good morning. It's hard to find fault with the bodywork, unless we include in this category the average condition of the interior of many examples, especially post-fleet ones. Unwanted sounds from under the dashboard are commonplace. In addition, water sometimes collects in the spare wheel well of the station wagon version, which is usually helped by seals for technological holes made of paper, or at least they give that impression. However, water can also get into the trunk in other ways. In addition, active radiator shutters can cause problems. Things get a bit more serious in the case of the electrical system. Electric power steering failures are relatively common, although it seems that this mainly concerns the oldest cars. What's more, in some cases it is simply necessary to recharge the battery or replace it with a new one. In others, it is usually necessary to talk about repairing the theoretically non-disassemblable and non-repairable power steering module or simply replacing it. Sometimes it is necessary to replace the steering gear. In such cases, it is recommended to use a newer one due to the improved design. Other faults in this category include occasional audio system, temperature sensors, and comfort modules. In Focus RSs, you can come across a faulty driving mode switching function, but a software update should help here. The braking system is not very problematic. Only occasionally does someone look for the option of replacing the discs with larger ones, or replacing the rear drums, installed in the basic versions, with discs. It is also difficult to find opinions about the poor handling of the Focus, which in this generation was equipped with a multi-link rear suspension in all versions. However, there are comments about the loud operation of the suspension, both front and rear. In addition, Ford has skimped a bit on the anti-corrosion protection of the chassis. So far yet, there has been no tragedy, but many owners of these cars either already use or intend to use additional chassis protection against rust. The basic and cheapest option was the only naturally aspirated engine in the range, 1.6 Ti-V CT. Unlike the Focus Mk3, the Troshka did not use this engine in a version without variable valve timing, which did not prevent Ford from magically creating an 85 horsepower version. Acceleration to 100 kilometers per hour took 14.9 seconds. In addition, 105 and 125 horsepower versions were offered, as well as a 117 horsepower variant with factory LPG and a 120 horsepower flexi fuel. As in the Mondeo Mk4, it is also difficult to find any repeatable faults with the 1.6 engines, developed together with Yamaha. The only exception is the malfunctioning variable valve timing system, but this is not a very widespread problem. The rest of the petrol engines are the EcoBoost family. The smallest of these engines is the 3-cylinder 1.0 engine, which was offered in 100, 125, and 140 horsepower versions, the latter only in the last year of production. Opinions on the 1.0 exabytes are strongly divided, not only among users but also in the press. Some praise it very much, while others would gladly throw it off a cliff. The manufacturer himself, during the presentation of the 1.0 exabytes, claimed that these engines should travel at least 250,000 kilometers, and then determined that the timing belt operating in oil should be replaced every 240,000 kilometers, or every 10 years. The general situation is that these engines can operate for a long time and without failure, but the timing belt should be replaced every 100–120,000 kilometers at most, and at this time it is absolutely necessary to check the condition of the oil strainer. Belt shreds can clog this strainer, which affects lubrication efficiency. In addition, the recommended oil change intervals of every 20,000 kilometers should also be shortened, optimally to 10,000 kilometers. The oil must meet the requirements of the WSSM 2C948B standard. On the secondary market, there are Focus 1.0 exabytes with mileage exceeding 300,000 kilometers, so it is possible, but it requires a lot of technical culture, and even then, there may still be a problem with the fuel pump or a cracked head. 1.0 EcoBoost engines have been modernized many times, so we can say that the newer, the better. The next option is the 1.6 EcoBoost engine. It was offered in 150 and 182 horsepower versions. In terms of drive parameters and driving experience, it is difficult to have any complaints about it, but here too you should expect failures. The most serious ones include cracks in the blocks and heads, as well as cooling system failures, due to which a service campaign was carried out. Another thing is that the cooling system is worth checking in every engine version. With the facelift, the 1.6 exabytes engine gave way to the smaller 1.5 exabytes. also in 150 and 182 HP versions, which has several design changes, including an improved cooling system. In retrospect, it seems that the 1.5 causes fewer problems than the 1.6, although new ones have also appeared, e.g. a rattling sound after starting in some units, usually lasting about 20 to 40 seconds. It is interesting because I was not able to find out what is causing it. Some authorized service centers claim that it is the turbine wastegate, others that it is something with direct fuel injection, and others that it is simply the way this type is, and in fact, some cars had it from new. But this is not the most interesting thing, but the fact that this rattling occurs probably only in the 150 HP version, and often either an engine software update or uploading software from the 182 HP version helps. The penultimate option is the 2-liter EcoBoost with 250 HP, used in the sporty Focus Street. Due to its low popularity, it is difficult to talk about repeatable failures, but if there is something to be afraid of, it is cracking pistons. Most sources claim that the cause may be the so-called super-knocking combustion, LSPI, low-speed pre-ignition, occurring at low engine speeds and relatively high loads, but it is difficult to treat this with 100% certainty. There are repeated opinions that the risk of failure can be reduced by using a larger intercooler. The standard one for the ST version is too inefficient. The top of the range was the 350 HP 2.3 EcoBoost engine, used in the Focus RS. Initially, it had serious problems from its infancy. A batch of these cars had incorrect head gaskets, coming from the 2.3-liter Mustang. This resulted in smoke, rapid loss of coolant, or simply the inability to start the car. After carrying out a service campaign, these problems stopped. Cars manufactured after the 6th of July 2017 should not have any problems with head gaskets. The manufacturer replaced gaskets and heads under warranty, and in some cases even entire engines if necessary. It is worth adding that repairs were not refused to owners of cars after chip tuning. The 2.0 and 2.3 EcoBoost engines have a chain-driven timing system. Users have not reported any complaints about its durability. The Ford Focus Mk3 featured a total of 3 diesel engines, but each was available in different power versions. The most desirable engine is of course the 2.0 TDCi, designed together with the PSA group, which could have from 115 to 185 horsepower. The latter was available in the Focus ST as an alternative to the 250 horsepower EcoBoost engine. Repeated faults are typical for turbo diesels and concern rather accessories, such as turbocharging or DPF filter failures. These are some of the most recommendable diesels on the market. An alternative for people with lower requirements initially, until 2015, were 1.6 TDCi units, also structurally identical to 1.6 HDI. Versions with power from 95 to 115 HP were offered. These are modernized engines with 8-valve heads, considered more durable than those used in, for example, the 16 volts version of the Focus Mk2. In addition to the faults mentioned in the 2.0 TDCi, which are typical for most diesels on the market, there is also the issue of oil leaks. In some units, the body shakes when the engine is running at idle speed. Sometimes replacing one of the engine mounts helps, but not always. Some blame this state of affairs on poorly designed engine suspension. Since 2014, newer 1.5 TDCi engines can also be found under the hoods of Focuses, which were created by reducing the cylinder diameter. The piston stroke is the same. The weakest version still had 95 HP. The power of the most powerful one increased slightly to 120 HP. After all these years, the engine seems to be at least as successful as the 1.6 TDCi, maybe even more. The 95 HP version has a turbocharger without variable vane geometry, so its potential regeneration will be cheaper. You still have to watch out for DPF filter clogging. Most models have manual transmissions. They have 5 and 1.0 exabytes 100 HP, and all 1.6 TVCT, or 6 gears, and basically there are no reports of problems with them. Only sometimes in RS models do problems with engaging some gears appear. It is worth noting, however, that many Focuses were subject to a service campaign concerning the clutch system. It is worth checking the VIN of a given model to see if it should also go to the service. The alternative to manuals are dual-clutch power-shift transmissions and hydrokinetic automatic transmissions. The former were offered in diesels, 1.5, 120 HP and all 2.0, and in the 125 HP, 1.6 petrol. while the automatic was only available in petrol cars, 1.0 and 1.5 exabytes. The hydrokinetic seems to be a slightly better choice. It is difficult to find information about its faults. Power shift is a different story. Compared to the competition, it may not be a less recommendable transmission, but although repair prices have fallen in recent years, they are still usually higher than in the case of the more popular DSG-VW group. You don't have to worry about them too much in diesels. Petrol engines are a bit more risky. Naturally aspirated 1.6 is the safest choice, but many people say they drive, as if they were pulling the national debt on a hook. The most interesting choice for everyday use in the petrol category seems to be the 1.5 EcoBoost units, 1.0 and 1.6 conditionally. Despite these mishaps, the engine range was rich enough that you can still find something for yourself. Focus also makes up for it with low failure rates of other components, and for this reason it remains a popular choice on the secondary market. And if you know of any common errors, your comments are welcome.